one of the things that has really just boggled my mind all the time is, how can somebody go from a kind, generous person in Rwanda? You have people who will give you the shirt off your back. I mean, to strangers. They'll give unbelievable kindness to strangers. And I'm like, how do they go from this kind, generous person, kind of turning everything upside down, to a murderer? And then the even maybe harder question is, how do you go from somebody who's murdered? Well, you can't go back. You got to go forward, but can you go forward to become a person who's kind and generous again? And one of the things that has given me so much hope in this, understanding the negative, going from generous to murderous, but then also understanding murderous to generous again, is the idea of neural pathways. I'm no expert on this, but I got started with this guy, a podcast called the Neuroscience of Happiness. And he talks about how every time we fire a pathway, he talks about fire to rewire your brain. Every time we fire a pathway, we're making that pathway stronger. It's like the coating on the outside nylon sheath. You fire it, it becomes slicker, it becomes quicker. And so I learned directions. I learned to play music, instrument. I learned different moves with football, sports or something, and I'm developing new pathways in my brain. And so I started looking at that and thinking, wow, I can, for example, I could become a more grateful person if I just started firing pathways of gratitude more often, thanking people for the bathroom that's just been cleaned, and I see the person who cleans it, thanking the security guard at the airport, just thanking the people who prepared the food. I can work on building new pathways in my brain, and the more I fire it, the stronger that pathway will become. And so I started thinking about that with the people who had done horrible things. And I'm thinking, wow, they could change. I mean, for years, I would tell the story of Rwanda, and I just told their story from 1994. I need to learn their story now. I would go to Tige camps, these camps here in Rwanda, work in the interest of the general public, and I would look and say, wow, so these are the men and women who did genocide. But as I started to have conversations and I started seeing them working in the community, and I realized day after day, week after week, people saw them building roads. They're not paying back, but they're making new pathways in their mind. This idea that we can build new pathways, and then when we don't fire the other pathways so much, they do start to, they talk about pruning like with a tree. Those pathways diminish. So I'm super excited about the power of building new neural pathways. And it gives me hope not only for myself and dealing with all kinds of things in life, but it gives me hope for others that there is a physiological, biological reason, evidence to show that people can change. That's often the question. Can they change? And I say neural pathways gives me a big foot forward, step up in believing that people can change.